Keynesian economics. Can anyone tell me what Keynesian economics is? Yeah? Ah, you read the subtitle. This is, and we're going to show you why, but Keynesian economics came about by Mr. Keynes and his theories about how the economy should be run or handled. And all of his theories have been almost completely disproved and are not followed except for the way the federal government runs. Federal government follows it almost to a T. Okay, and that is the Keynesian philosophy that government stimulation and control in the economy is necessary to its general health. Or in other words, without the government intervening, the economy is not going to function properly or to its fullest potential. It will not be as prosperous as it could be. Stimulation should generally be approached through encouraging consumption in the marketplace. So, and you saw that, earlier over the last 12 months when George Bush sent out his economic stimulus package, sending everybody a check. The thought is that will encourage people to go and buy things. And by buying things, they'll stimulate the economy. Does anyone know what the GDP is? Gross domestic product. What is that a measure of? Okay, the output in the country, or more specifically, the number of dollars that are exchanged in the economy over the course of the year. So the GDP over the course of the year is the measure of those changes. So if you send a $2,000 check to every citizen in the United States, is your GDP going to go up or go down? It's going to go up. Yeah, certainly. People have an extra $2,000 to spend. They're going to spend it. But let's just look cursory on the top, on the surface of this. What happens to, say, Joe Producer over here that owns a speedboat factory or retail shop? Let's say retail shop. He has all these speedboats. So, Joe Consumer comes along. He's got his stimulus check. What does he do with that? Some may go and may be very wise with it and, try and make their lives better. But some will say, I'm going to make my life better by getting a speedboat, right? So they go and buy their speedboat, and they take it home, and Joe Producer is having all this additional revenue because he's selling all these speedboats. And any entrepreneur that sees this income coming, these profits coming from selling these speedboats, naturally says, I've got to stock up on this similar item because it's selling really well. So it distorts the natural market because there's this influx of cash. And so, Joe Producer may go out and fill his store and his lot up with all of these speedboats. And as soon as the economic stimulus package is gone, what happens to Joe Producer? He's prospered now. He's gotten a lot more money, but he's also put most of it back into these additional speedboats. But he's got a lot full of speedboats now. What happens to him? He sells them at a loss. He declares bankruptcy. He quits producing. Exactly. So on the surface, it says, hey, this is great. We're going to stimulate the economy. We're going to make things better. And it is, for a moment, possibly for Joe Producer, because he's able to sell more. And then he's able to buy more things. But in the long run, what happens? Yeah, the stimulation is false. It does not produce real wealth in the economy. And then the last one, of the Keynesian philosophy that we're going to talk about, is that a healthy public debt should be approximately 50 to 60% of the country's GDP. And it's supposed to be 50 to 70%, somewhere in that ratio. I've actually read a true Keynesian who was obviously in humor advocating a constitutional amendment to say that anybody that referred to the public debt as a number or as a number of dollars rather than a percentage should be taken out into the town square and have blank done to them. Because that's the way Keynesians think. Because as long as the debt keeps that ratio with the GDP, from the Keynesian's perspective, it's a healthy economy. Things are going good. We're going to talk about why here in the next slide. Here's an average spending cycle. We have a new law calling for government spending, whatever that may be, whether it's something like Social Security or Medicaid in addition to Medicaid, whether we're talking about just an appropriation for a bridge to nowhere, whatever. Some law comes along and asks for spending. Tax dollars run out. We've used them all. But it's okay, because as we analyze where our GDP and our public debt sit, we're doing fine. We're in the low 50s at this point. So the Federal Reserve prints an additional money and gives it to the Treasury so they can fund these projects that we've signed into law. We're going to do them, right? We signed them into law. They're going to happen. So they print additional money to take care of it. The public debt is increased. And then those additional dollars enter the economy. Now, these were dollars that didn't previously exist in the economy. So what happens in the economy with these additional dollars? Value of the dollar goes down. You bet. Because if you have 100 of a certain item, and all of a sudden you have 200 of a certain item, do you value them as much? You got a bunch of them. And the more you get, the less you value that single one. That's exactly what happens with dollars in the monetary system. They become continually devalued as we add money. And there are a lot, we can get very technical about how inflation is created and how it's intensified based on how the money is spent. But very high level, by adding money to the market that didn't exist there before, we devalue the dollar. And then, because we have all these additional dollars in the economy, what happens to our GDP? Yeah, our GDP goes up. Isn't that awesome? Because we've got more money, and the GDP is a measure of the number of times those dollars traded hands. So because of that, the more money we have in the market, the more potential we have for a higher GDP. So higher GDP, lower percentage of public debt to GDP. Automatically built in to Keynesian economics is the methodology through which government can continue to spend more. Because as long as they keep that percentage, they're good. And as long as they continue to spend money, their ability to spend money will go up. But what happens to us? Those that don't get the benefit of printing our own money, although we maybe like to at times. Last step, rinse and repeat. Okay, just go through the process.